Welcome to the second of two tutorials on inventory models. This is an especially important topic since every business uses inventory. Even a small accounting firm, for example, has copier paper and inventory as well as toner cartridges, pens and pencils, and the like. You should listen to the first tutorial before listening to this one. In that one, I talked about introducing the models, several economic order quantity models, finding the order quantity, and setting the reorder point. In this video, I'll talk about fixed order interval models, also known as fixed time period models, and several single period models. My students can access the video tutorials for these problems using the content menu in D2L. YouTube viewers can access the video tutorials on my MOOC on udemy.com. I have a long and short version of the URL posted on the screen, and I will post this URL in the description. Imagine that you use a lot of different size steel beams in your business. They all come from the same supplier. You wouldn't want to order one size today, another size tomorrow, and yet another size the next day. You'd be paying higher order costs, but in addition, you'd be paying a lot more shipping costs. So it makes sense to consolidate those orders into one overall order. That's where a fixed order interval model comes into play. That's a model where you order once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever makes sense for your business. So orders are placed at fixed time intervals. So the purpose of our calculations is to figure out the order quantity for the next interval. In fact, in a situation like this, your steel supplier would encourage you to do this. One advantage of a fixed order interval model is you only have to check your inventory periodically. So if you're ordering once a week, you only have to check your inventory once a week. You do have a higher risk of a stock out, as we talked about in the prior video, so you may carry more inventory, more safety stock. With fixed order interval models, we talk about the fill rate. That's the percentage of demand that can be filled by on-hand inventory. In other words, that's the service rate. There are a couple of benefits of the fixed order interval model. As I mentioned in my example earlier, when we're ordering from the same supplier, we may have order savings, packing savings, shipping savings. Oftentimes, it's the only approach that's practical when you don't have the ability to monitor your inventory closely. And what that usually means is you haven't computerized your inventory. It also has some real disadvantages. The biggest one is, as we've talked about, it requires a larger safety stock. That means it increases your carrying cost. As a result, we tend to use this for less expensive items. In those cases, carrying costs aren't such a big issue. Also, we have to come in and check our inventory once every week, for example, instead of depending on a computer to monitor it. We have to talk about the protection period. In order to talk about that, let's assume that we have a weekly order. We place orders on Wednesday, and they come in on Friday. Looking at the pink area, we place the order on Wednesday, it comes in on Friday, and now it has to protect us for longer than a week. So we go to next Wednesday, we place an order, but if we've run out, we don't get it yet. We don't get it till that Friday. So the protection period is the review period, the week, plus the lead time. So my protection period has to be for 9 days. Now I place my next order, the blue one, on Wednesday. It comes in on Friday. Next Wednesday, I can place another order, but I don't receive it till next Friday. So I have another 9-day protection period. Also note that my protection periods overlap each other. If both the demand rate and the lead time are constant, the fixed interval model and the fixed quantity model work identically. However, they work differently under variability. We will assume variable demand and constant lead time in our calculations. In a fixed quantity model, an EOQ model, orders are triggered by reaching the reorder point R. That happens before zero, so we only need stock out protection during lead time. That's the reason for the lower safety stock. In the fixed interval arrangement, orders are triggered by time every Wednesday in my prior example. So we need stock out protection for the entire protection period. More stock out protection means higher inventory holding costs. The amount that we're going to order equals the expected demand during the protection period plus safety stock less the amount on hand at the reorder point. Note that OI, the order interval, plus LT, the lead time, is the protection period. The reorder point Q is equal to the average daily demand times the protection period plus Z times the daily standard deviation times the protection period minus the amount on hand. That formula looks complicated and it can be a little difficult, but it's absolutely misleading. For your inventory items, you calculate that number once. You print it off on a tag and you hang it on the bin. Let's say it's 300. That never changes because nothing happens week by week to change those numbers. The only amount that changes is the amount that's on hand, A in this formula. So you go in there and you count the number that you have. You've got 50. You're supposed to have 300. So you know you order 300 minus 50 equals 250. You don't calculate that formula again. Now let's talk about single period models. A single period model is a model for ordering perishables or other items with limited useful lives. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Many years ago, our baseball team, the Braves, were in the World Series. Vendors printed up a bunch of Braves t-shirts, and they were selling them on street corners. Once the World Series was over and the Braves lost, those t-shirts weren't worth anything. Nobody wanted them. That's sort of an unusual example of a single period model. The more typical use for this is for like vegetables or things that are going to spoil. Shortage costs are the unrealized profits that you didn't make because you didn't order enough. Excess costs are the difference between purchase cost and salvage value of items left over at the end of the period. The day after the Braves lost the World Series, I was driving by one of those vendors that was having a clearance sale on their t-shirts. I bought a big handful of t-shirts for I think 50 cents a piece. They were good for washing cars, and so I got me some junk rags basically. The money that they lost there was the excess cost. We're going to talk about two single period models. The first is continuous stocking levels. Here we identify the optimum stocking level, and it balances shortages and excess cost. There's also discrete stocking levels. Continuous is when we're stocking enough that we can treat it as a continuous distribution. Discrete is when we're stocking small numbers of items. And we find our desired service level, and we either find a number that equals it or exceeds it. C sub S is the shortage cost per unit. C sub E is the excess cost per unit. We find the service level by combining the ratio of C sub S divided by C sub S plus C sub E. With the discrete model, stocking level calculated usually does not coincide with a feasible stocking level, so you always round up to the next highest level. In conclusion, too much inventory hides problems. It can be easier to live with those problems than to do the hard work it takes to eliminate them. However, your holding costs are higher, the problems cost you money, so this is a costly strategy to maintain. A wiser strategy is to reduce order quantities and lot sizes, expose your problems and fix them, reduce your safety stock, minimize your inventory cost. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and consider subscribing to this channel.